You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. You always thought that you were weak, but babe, you're wrong. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Think that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine. You shouldn't doubt yourself, 'cause you're a work of art. You should know that you are perfect with those flaws. Yeah, you better step into the light, just give it a try. Know that it's time you let that spark out. You've been hiding in the shadows way too long. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine, shine, darling, go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine. And who cares if you might mess it up? You're stronger than the others think. And who cares if you might mess it up? Shine. Go ahead and shine, darling, go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine, shine, darling, go ahead and shine, my dear. 'Cause who cares if you might mess it up? Just shine.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to A Turn of Events, where we put a positive spin on the future of your business. I'm Annette Naif, the founder and creative director of Naif Productions. We are a strategic event production company based in New York City and Boca Raton, but we do events all over the world. We specialize in corporate, social, nonprofit, and weddings, and we're here to help you in any way. If you are a wedding or event planner and you are looking to start your own business, you must join us over at the Event Planner Society Facebook group. Lots of great collaborations over there. I'm in there a lot teaching, so you must join us, Event Planner Society Facebook group. Okay, so my next guest, I'm very excited about. We're going to talk about a really great topic about pricing. Many of you are always asking me about pricing, and we're going to cover all of that. So Emily Coyne is the founder of Emily Coyne Events. She has always had a passion for creating extraordinary events. As a child, she spent hours poring over her leather-bound copy of Emily Post's book of etiquette, fascinated with the difference between a bouillon spoon, and a soup spoon, or the proper way to eat peas from a fork. They are to be rolled off the back of the fork, in case you were wondering. She set a elaborate tablescapes and planned dinner parties and productions, never dreaming that these childhood inspirations would one day lead her to life's work. She is amazing. She has an amazing background, and I want to bring her on so she can tell you all about it. Hello, Emily. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you, Annette. It's great to be here.
It's so good to have you. So you have such a big resume here that I didn't want to go into. I thought I would let you kind of share how you got into the industry and all that good story. And then we'll get into percentage pricing model for planners, which is a really great topic. You and I have talked a little bit about it, but we're going to deep dive into that.
We have. Great. Well, so yes, you mentioned my childhood antics. I was obsessed with dinner parties and entertaining for my parents' friends. And then left that behind, studied communication, interior design. I ended up in the hotel and hospitality world, really in restaurants. I managed some fine dining restaurants in California's capital, and then ended up in luxury resorts, first doing corporate events, and then it moved into the wedding side of things. And I just loved it. I found that it combined all of the functions, communication, logistics, problem solving, and also the design side of things, spatial planning. And after many years, my last position in hotels was as the director of catering at a world-class Auberge du Soleil. I decided that I really wanted to have less clients per year, but be involved at a much greater depth. But I loved everything about food and beverage and hospitality, especially operating at that luxury level. The Forbes 5-star standards were something that we trained on, and were just grilled into us at the properties that I worked at. And I wanted to take that and that surprise and delight and anticipating guest needs and really over delivering on everything and bring that into the wedding world when I started my own company. So Emily Coyne Events was founded about 6 years ago. I have an incredible team. We are based in California, but we work all over, predominantly the US and Mexico. And we do about 8 weddings a year, plus a handful of other social events. We don't really touch corporate at this point, but if it is a social celebration, usually for legacy clients, then we have a handful of those too.
That's fantastic. That's great. All right. So what made you switch from a flat fee to a percentage fee? We're going to just jump right in.
Yes, I am very passionate about this topic. And for me, I actually started thinking I would never go to that model. I thought that flat fee was just the straightforward approach, simple and easy to understand. So I was doing that for a while. And it dawned on me kind of slowly that it actually was not the most fair way for either the client or for myself. And there was a particular client, I'm actually good friends with her now, but she came to me, this was many years ago, with a wedding budget that she thought she was going to be spending around $100,000, which at the time, and I know that's an incredible sum of money. At the time, I felt like that was a really big budget that I was going to be working with. And I was thrilled to get it, booked her for full service planning for my flat fee of $12,000. And over the course of the next year, we had an incredible time planning, but the scope of her wedding changed so dramatically that budget ended up tripling. And ultimately they ended up spending over $300,000.
Wow.
And what was causing the increase in budget were additional events being added, additional customizations. Let's do this specialty entertainment. And all of those decisions that they were making was a lot of fun. but we were spending so many more hours
That's right.
trying to source all of these additional vendors. And we were looking at bringing in China from out of the country at one point because we were looking for something so specific. Like the amount of hours that was going into this wedding had changed drastically. And in the course of that happening, I booked my full season, right? And I booked a full season expecting that I would be dedicating sort of the standard amount of hours from our team into each wedding. And this one tripled as the budget tripled, and it really stretched me thin. I needed to, bring on extra support staff. I was working around the clock.
Yeah.
And because I believe so much in over delivering, and everything went fabulously, and all of our clients were very happy that year. But at the end of it, I realized that I had done a disservice to myself and also to the client. Had I known from the beginning, or had I been able to see that wedding was scaling as it did grow, I would have been able to maybe not take another wedding and dedicate our team more to this one.
Right.
So that was kind of the impetus for the change.
Yeah, there's a couple things in there. One is, once the scope of work starts changing, because to be, full transparency here, I'm making this transition to a percentage. We are flat fee. I've been that for a really long time, but that happens, right? So we have an event right now, which I do corporate, social, nonprofit, I do a lot of different things other than weddings, and I price differently with weddings, but that's a whole separate thing. We are, when we originally signed on with the client, they told us that they have a cocktail reception on one of the nights. So it wasn't like we're going to throw a big party like a wedding, which is what it's now turning into. It was, we're going to throw a cocktail party, and it's just basically, you pick hors d'oeuvres, it's in this one room, and it's not going to be anything. There's nothing major to it, right? So we didn't think that there were going to be other hours with that. But the client's so great. And anytime, this is just a good tip, is anytime this happens and you have charged a flat rate and you have a scope, you really need to put your scope of work in your contract so that it outlines everything you're going to do. Because now if it changes, you can go back and say, this is out of the scope. And, there's going to be more hours put into this, because we're basically planning a whole nother event on top of this 3-day event that we're doing for them. So I wrote to the client and said, just want to let you know that this has now become much bigger than what we had originally talked about. And she said, I'm so happy that you mentioned that, and let's discuss that. So, listen, you have to sometimes have those conversations that might be uncomfortable, but you got to do it, because then
that's how you grow. Those conversations help you grow.
Exactly. And so, the worst that can happen is they say no, but unfortunately, you're probably going to feel really bad if they do say no. And it's going to put a damper on the whole planning of the event. And you're going to be like, just not hating the whole thing. But that's why the percentage is great. So I really want to hear more about that. So the hours too that you mentioned was the other thing, is there's so much time that has to go into it that you didn't allot for. And honestly, at the end of the day, did you make any money on that event?
Well, in that instance, I was very fortunate that this couple, so lovely, they recognized what had happened. I didn't even have to go to them and talk to them about the change of scope. They actually gave me an incredible cash gift after the wedding, realizing that it had changed so much. And not every client would do that. And certainly, it was completely unexpected. I had not been planning on asking for anything like that. It was a learning lesson for me. And that was just a nice bonus on that one. But had that not happened, no, I probably would have lost money at the end of the day on that wedding with the staffing that I had.
Sure. My first event, I priced out, once I learned how to price my services, I made a negative $57 an hour. So
you actually broke it out hourly.
I figured it out. I did. I went back and figured it out, and it wasn't pretty. But these are things you remember 14 years later. You're not going to do it again, right?
Absolutely.
So, it is pricing so tricky. But okay, so how has charging on a percentage changed your business?
Yeah, this is what has been really amazing for us. And part of why I'm so passionate about it is that sort of side thought in this industry, there's not really a barrier to entry, right? There's no doctorate that you get, no certification
Right.
or real estate training, or so many other industries. There is some way that you specifically train for it, you get accredited for it, and now you are, a professional in this industry.
Right.
And the wedding and event industry is not like that. And I feel that the percentage model pricing actually really helps the industry as a whole to make sure that clients are paying appropriately for the scope of what they're doing, making sure they're not paying too much or too little.
Right.
And then it also is helping event planners be able to make, what is appropriate for the scope of that job. What's really changed for us is the level of service that we can devote to our clients, because there may be some years where, based on the scope of the weddings we take, there's only 6 weddings that we're doing. And maybe there are years where we're doing 8. 8 is kind of our average, but it usually ranges from about 6 to 8. And if we're doing a wedding that is double the budget, and therefore the scope of production from another one, it really is taking double the amount of hours. We operate at a very concierge level of service, so we're putting at easily 500 to 700 hours per wedding.
Yeah.
And that's just our model, because we're handling so much, absolutely everything for the client.
Right.
But if we're stretching ourselves too thin, we're not going to be able to over deliver. And that's something that we really believe in. So that's been able to help us know how many weddings we should take each year, being on this percentage model.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And then I think it also, changes your mindset too, I think, because if you feel like you have this flat fee and you're constantly watching the hours and making sure, that if weddings they always spend more money than they say they're going to. It's just inevitable. They start adding on all kinds of other things, and it just always happens. So I think, you're in it and you're feeling a little better. It just makes the team feel better. And I know that as a business owner for myself, knowing that I'm making good money on this event, and it's, I'm not like penny pitching along the way here. And you said too, you're able to give a higher level of, customer service, concierge service to the client. And that's what's really important. For us,
Absolutely.
yeah, we are all about, customer service. So
I know you are.
yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. No, it's a little,
Yeah, and the thing you mentioned about weddings always spending more, that's something I'd love to actually dive into a little bit,
sure,
because I think sometimes the fear that event planners have, and that potential clients have with this percentage model pricing, is, oh, it's just going to incentivize driving the budget higher. And that's something that we are very conscious of with potential clients. And it takes more work on our part. We can get into that. But we really believe that they should be educated fully about this budget before they go into it. And if we are going to charge on a percentage, for the client's sake, and really also for ours, because if the wedding budget does increase, that's actually, it's not necessarily something that I want to see, right? Like, if I have booked this wedding and we know that it's supposed to be a $400,000 wedding, and we know that that's based on a certain scope, well, then I know what I can take for the rest of the year with other events. And if suddenly that wedding budget doubles, or they decided to add a tent, and now we have an overnight in, like, all of these extra logistics and design elements that we have to handle, I don't really want that surprise
Yeah.
down midway through the planning process. Does it happen? Yeah, at the beginning, so that there aren't surprises. And, we've gone in with full transparency about what we expect that they spend, make sure they're comfortable with that.
Right. Right.
And sure, if they do decide down the road to change things, but we go in pretty, I would say, aggressively with like what's realistic for their budget. And we've lost clients that way, but we'd rather be honest with
Yeah.
them
I
than
agree.
it double later
We
on.
are also, you want to present a budget that's on a much higher level than what, I don't want any surprises. And we definitely, the budget's increased, not because we've increased it or
Right.
we made mistakes along the way. It's because they've added in, another party, or they
Exactly.
want the tent, or like all the things, because now they're starting to get excited and they want to do another day of events. And so that's more team and that's more stuff. So it's generally always on the bride and groom's, the couple side of, or the parents want to do something other, and some other special things. So but we're much more aggressive on the budget ahead of time, because I don't want to go back to them and say, oh, this is much more than we thought it was. Yeah,
No, those conversations are not fun.
those are not good. And you want to make sure that you're always, it's obviously a moving budget, but still we want to just make sure there's no surprises.
Yeah. And don't be afraid. I think newer planners sometimes can just feel like they want to make the client happy. They just want to be able to always say yes and like, oh,
Yeah.
sure, we can do it for that amount of money. When really you can't, when really it's going to be more than that. That is not what they're hiring you for. They're not hiring you to just be a yes person. They're hiring you to be a professional and help guide them and give them advice. So be honest with them. It will do you such a great service in the long run. And
Yeah, that happened to us. We got a really big event. They had interviewed 5 planners before they came to us, and the company did not. They didn't feel right in their gut that these planners were telling them the right information. There wasn't enough. They didn't have enough time in the at the venue to set up. I mean, there was like 2 hours, and it was a huge setup. They spent $500,000 on decor. It was a lot of stuff involved. And so they came to us, and I just said, I cannot set this up in 2 hours. And it's impossible. And then I told them, go
one of
back.
the biggest mistakes people make if they book their venue before they book a planner.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I never like anybody to book. I always have to say, listen, I need to see your contract, because
Yeah.
I got to see, what am I, how much time did you get to set up? Because they don't think about that, right? That's a big thing. And so we had to I said, go back to the hotel. I told them what to do before they hired me. I gave them some advice, a little bit of advice. They were so happy about it. And I said, I need, at minimum 5 hours, and we need way more than that. So it ended up that they loved that I said no. And listen, in the beginning, when I started, I probably would have, figured it out after, but it's too scary. And it just puts a bad light on your business if you do say something like that and then you can't follow through. It's too stressful. No one needs that stress. You got enough to deal with planning it all and dealing with everybody, that you don't need that. So we ended up getting that, and it was one of my best clients, and it was a really fabulous, big event, and it was really fun.
That is fantastic. I had a situation little similar a couple of years ago, where I got on the call with a client and was providing quite a bit of education about what a realistic budget was based on what they were asking for. And it was not the budget that they wanted to spend. And so, I spent another 15 minutes just trying to understand who might be the good fit for them, and then referred them to a couple of other less expensive planners and less involved planners that would take a little bit more of a checklist approach. And lo and behold, 2 weeks later, they called me back and they said, you know what, like you were really straightforward with us about what it would actually cost. We want to book you. And
Right.
suddenly they did actually have the budget to do what
Yeah,
we
isn't that funny? That's exactly it. I think they would appreciate the honesty, and it's going to save you a headache in the long run. So,
Mhm.
I was, I've learned that you just when you're first starting out, there's a lot of new listeners that are listening, that will also be watching this that are just starting their businesses. So, this is just such great advice for them to. If you're not sure, don't say that you can do something. Maybe check on it and get back to them, and you know that's okay. You're starting out, you're starting out. That's just the way it is. And you're going to have to learn along the way. So we've
100%.
all
Yeah.
been there and,
Go for more in your budgets. And I mean, think how great it is to come to a client and say, here's the florist that I think we should use. And they're coming in under budget. Like, if you could go through the entire planning process and be able to say to your client every single time, we can come in under budget on this. Like, they
yeah,
are going to trust you so much. And then, when it does come time to say, really, I think you're going to be happiest if you invest more in this area, like, they're actually going to listen to you because they trust you.
right. And you have to remember they're hiring you because you're the expert. So,
Mhm.
keep that in mind. Sometimes you feel like, oh, you get nervous about when you're first starting, especially like, like, I don't know, maybe they're going to think I don't know what I'm doing or things like that. But, just be confident. Confidence is everything. So, I've always said this, fake it till you make it. And I know that you and I have the same coach. So she says the same thing. And when she said it, I was like, that's my girl. So, but it's true. I mean, we've done that along the way as you just kind of, you'll figure it out. So, okay. So when you're pitching, what's your pitch and how do you explain to this potential client about this percentage?
Yeah, I think it really is very important that you explain it to them.
Right.
Some markets, some types of clients, they're going to understand the model already because they may work with architects or interior designers or lawyers or other people that charge on a similar scope. But I think that it's really important that you make them understand that this is actually in their benefit as well. So when I start explaining our percentage, and our percentage is 18% of the total wedding budget. Personally, we do exclude their attire and jewelry and accommodations from that. But those are pieces that we're not really managing. We have options to manage those things in a different way, and that's kind of an add-on service. Anyway, so as we explain our percentage, I'm saying it's very much like building a house. If you are going to have an architect or contractor do a 1,000 square foot cabin, it's simple, it's streamlined, it can be up in a short amount of time. That's very different than designing and building a 10,000 square foot custom mansion.
Mhm.
And events are like that as well. As your budget is increasing, you are increasing the ability to customize, the ability to do things that are more intricate and
Right.
interesting. You're having a tent. If you're not having that tent, why pay to have us manage that tent? If you're not going to have a videographer, you're not paying for us to manage that videographer. If you say it in those terms, they start to understand that if I were to charge a flat fee, I would have to assume that
Right.
they're going to do absolutely everything.
That's a
And
very good
so,
point. Mhm.
yeah, I would charge a flat fee based on we're going to be putting 700 or 800 hours into this wedding, and they're going to have the video and the tent and all the shuttle transportation and the
Right.
room blocks and maybe they're not doing all of those things. So when you enlighten them about that, it clicks that, oh, well, we don't want the $100,000 tent. So I don't want to pay you to manage that tent that we don't even want. Um, and and then what I also explain to them, and this is a choice that we make. I know some percentage planners don't do this. I think it's obviously I do it, so I think it's important.
Yeah.
When they're serious, we've had our initial consult meeting, and then if they are serious about moving to contract, they say, we want to book you. I actually hit the brakes and I say, great, we're really excited too. We need to have one more meeting, and that meeting is about an hour for us. And we are looking at pictures and we're asking them 100 questions, and we're really diving deep on what is going to make them happy. I mean, I want to know the kinds of places that they travel and stay, like what level of hotel are they used to? That's going to tell me what level of service, are they going to be happy with this kind of caterer, or, a caterer that has a much higher staff to guest ratio.
Right.
So we dive deep in all of that, and then we put together a budget, and it is a very, very comprehensive, everything you could possibly need budget. And we send that spreadsheet to them, walk them through it, and then, because we have a number now, here's what you are asking for with your wedding, and here's what our fee is based on that. Now we move to contract.
You put a budget together before they hire you.
I do.
Wow.
And, I've heard some people say like, oh, you're doing work for them. What if they just take that budget and go elsewhere? Well, sure, maybe they could. We've had, by the time we get to that point though, I know that they are very invested in wanting to hire us. And we've had conversations about the total investment. So they know ballpark where that budget is going to come back in.
Right.
But I want in our contract that number, and I want them to be very clear before they have booked us that this is what you're asking for. And sometimes, we've done that budget and they will say, well, we really want to hire you, but like, can we scale back this budget? Like, there are things in here that we think we could spend less on. And I've said, yeah, and here's what you need to do. We need to use the rentals from the venue, use their tables and linens. You could eliminate the videographer. You could do this. We could reduce your budget by doing X, Y, Z. I still believe that what you're going to be happy with, what you're asking me for, is this budget.
Right.
But we can move forward, and lo and behold, we always end up back at the budget that I told them they were going to be at, because
right. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there have been a couple times, probably maybe once or twice, that we've gone to that stage of budgeting and then they have walked away. And, okay, so maybe I put in an hour of work, but in the long run, that would not have been the right fit of a client for me. They didn't trust or respect that, I knew what I was talking about with numbers, and it probably would have saved myself in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you suggest someone make the switch? So if someone's charging flat, how do you make the switch to percentage?
Just do it. Okay. So look, you are your own boss. You're your own company. You can always go back to a flat fee. I would suggest starting with, well, what is your flat fee now? Let's say my flat fee was $12,000 for that wedding years ago that I wanted to switch to percentage. So say that you charge a percentage with a minimum of whatever your current flat fee is. So at least you're guaranteeing yourself that minimum, which you currently would be making as your flat fee. Talk to people. I am happy. People can reach out to me. Like, I will talk all day long to planners who are thinking about switching to percentage, because I really do feel like it helps you and your business and the client as well. I think that you can start at a lower percentage. Maybe you're not doing concierge level, we're tracking RSVPs and communicating with guests. Like, you can switch to percentage even if you're doing logistics only. Maybe start at 10%. Know your numbers. I think it's really important that you know, based on your flat fee. Let's say, we'll just use nice even numbers. Let's say you charge a flat fee of $10,000, and you're normally working with budgets that are around 100,000. Well, that is 10% of $100,000 budget. So know what your kind of overall wedding budget should be. Be able to
Yeah,
talk
you should have a minimum. You
Yeah,
should
you
have
should
a minimum.
definitely have a minimum.
Yeah. So because if someone, if they're coming in at a $50,000 wedding and it's a 10%,
Yeah.
it's going to be, you're going to have a $5,000 minimum, but your minimum is 10, it's not going to work. So
No.
you have to
And you
really,
don't want to put yourself in that situation
right,
because you don't want them to spend too much. They
right,
should not spend more than 10 to 20% on their planning services.
right.
And that range depends on like what is the scope that you're really hiring a planner for. Are they just doing planning? Are they doing design? Are they doing, other things for you as well?
Right, right. So, are there any specific services or aspects of wedding planning that are typically included or excluded from the percentage fee? And I think you did mention the attire, jewelry, accommodations. You don't include that in the budget, right?
Yeah, we don't currently the attire and jewelry. So typically they are handling that on their
Right,
own or with the assistance of a stylist.
right.
And we have some options to be able to help them with styling things or styling the wedding party.
Mhm.
But that is excluded. Somebody may spend $2,000 on a wedding dress. They may spend $35,000 on a wedding dress.
Right.
The accommodations, I know there are a lot of other planners who charge it on the accommodations as well. We're not there right now, although especially in the last year, we have been managing a lot more for our clients. We've always managed hotel blocks, but we're now communicating directly with the guests a lot. So that may be something that changes for us in the future, just because we are actually now devoting a lot of hours to that. But currently we exclude accommodations and attire and jewelry.
Yeah. We generally do a commission on the sleeping room block because we do the sleeping room blocks, but that's also tricky. It depends on if the client's paying for everybody's rooms,
Right.
if the people coming in are paying for their own rooms. Then there's a conversation with that, because if the client's paying for it, then again, they're kind of paying you for that. But
if a client's paying, or it's set up in such a way that like we need to be collecting the credit card information because they have different prices that they want all the guests paying.
Right. There's a lot that goes into managing, because they're always like, they can't get the link or they can't book a room or the room block is filled up and we have to manage all of that. So there's a lot of that goes on. You do get paid the 10% from the hotel, but it's like a $10 additional fee on the sleeping room that goes back to the planner. But if the client's paying for that, they're kind of paying you. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. So we do that as well. Okay, great. So let's just see what else here. I can't believe we're already close to running into our hour here, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything really important. So if a client really insists on a flat fee and you don't want to lose them, is there any suggestion on that?
Yeah, I think that you are in the driver's seat.
Right.
You can always decide this one is worth it to me. What I would recommend doing is really discussing in depth the scope of the event and the budget, and then set a flat fee that correlates with that.
Right.
Figure out what the percentage would be of that event, maybe give it some buffer one way or the other, and then set that as your flat fee. I would also highly recommend that you put into your contract something that protects in case of the change of scope. So, depending on the total budget, maybe that's a $20,000 buffer, maybe that's a $100,000 buffer. If someone came to you and wanted to do $1 million wedding with a flat fee and you don't want to lose it, like, okay, set it. But then if it goes to 1.3 million, then make sure that you have a reassessment of that flat
Yeah,
fee.
we have a clause in there that if it is outside of the scope of the work, this is our hourly rate, and then we discuss that. So
Mhm.
we always make sure that we put that in there if we're doing a flat fee. So that's something you really want to make sure you're protecting yourself. And
Yeah.
we put in the contract the scope of work, right? It's discussed, it's been talked about, it's part of the contract. They sign off on that page,
Yeah.
including the rest of the agreement.
Yeah.
So
We do
that,
that now as well.
yeah, you
It's for the
really,
benefit of both parties.
it is, it is. And if there is something specific that the client's going to handle, we will put that in there as well so that
Mhm.
it's very clear. And if it changes along the way, we can do an addendum to the agreement, right? There's always, you can always do an addendum. Things change along the way, so don't feel like you're locked in completely. You have to just get the confidence to talk to the client and, make sure that you're upfront about how you're feeling about what's going on. You don't want to, again, it's right to the beginning of this conversation, is you don't want to feel bad about the fact that you're not making the money you should be making. You deserve to make the money that you should make for these, because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours and a lot of work. And you also have a team that you have to pay.
Yeah.
So that's important. So to the point of team, is charging this as a percentage more work for your team?
Um, it, I mean, yes, we have a bigger team and we are working more hours and harder on each wedding now than we were 3 years ago, because the scope of our weddings has changed. Like, we
Right.
are doing bigger scope, we're getting paid appropriately for it. So there is a lot more hours that are involved. Our core team, everything that happens in the office throughout the planning process, that is part of the planning fee, that percentage. Our on-site coordination team, we are bringing in some additional people for that, and there is a flat daily rate for the
Mhm.
number of staff that we're going to need.
Right.
And that is based on the guest count, the
Right.
what's
And
happening with
your core team, are you paying them per like a flat rate, or they charge
they're all
you
on
hourly?
salary.
They're on
So
salary.
yeah. So
Okay,
they're
good.
employees of the company on salary.
Okay, great. And do you find it harder to book clients in this with this percentage?
Um, I mean, it's harder in the sense that you will talk to more people, I'll book one for every 20 that I talk to, but now I'm booking 8 weddings a year that are the scope that we want to be doing instead
Right.
of 15 weddings a year. In terms of selling it or communicating it, no, it's no hard. I mean, sure, that extra hour that I put into creating
Yeah,
the budget for them.
right, right.
But I no, I feel like if you really know how to explain it, people get it. It makes sense, and they feel more protected. If you're really wanting to assure them that, look, part of the reason we do this whole budget before you sign the contract, you want to sign the contract right now, and
Yeah.
I'm saying, hold on, I want to give you a budget
Yeah.
because I want you to know, and then, like, go talk to any of our former clients. They will tell you that the budget stayed on track because we're only going to design around that budget and plan around that budget unless you start to tell us, oh, we want to add another day of an event, or we want to add that tent now.
Right,
But
right.
otherwise, I'm not going to show you the tent. It's not in your budget. I'm not going to show you a pretty tent that you can't afford.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, great. Okay, so I do this little lightning round and I'd like to ask you a few questions. So, who is someone who is inspiring you at the moment and why?
Well, since we're talking about percentage pricing, I have to talk about Brooke Keegan because she was really an inspiration to me when I made this switch.
Mhm.
So go listen to Brooke Keegan talk about this as well. And
Yeah,
she's an open book like I am.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she's great, right? So, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh my goodness. You know, I think that this is something that's really sunk in a lot for me in the last year. We work really hard. I have been such a perfectionist my entire life. Like there cannot be a mistake in anything. And my thought on that has shifted a lot in the last year. We are no longer afraid of mistakes. And this was, some advice. I've spent a lot of time kind of grow myself as a leader. And I listen to a lot of people outside of the wedding industry that I respect as leaders too. And I feel that if you cannot really grow and grow your team and scale your business without there being some things that happen, right? That is just when you add new processes, you add new team members, there are things that are going to happen. As I delegate more away, I can't do all of that exactly the way I would have done it personally. You have to trust other people. But it's okay for mistakes to happen as long as you learn from them.
Right.
If you're making them multiple times, that's a problem.
But
if you do something and then you evaluate that and you grow and learn from it, like that's part of growing.
Right.
And once you can not be afraid of making those mistakes and actually, embrace them because you realize that it's going to be something that you can then grow your business from, it's kind of game changing.
Yeah. You're going to learn. Listen, I've been in this business over 30 years. I've had my business for 14 years. There's always stuff. Stuff comes up and I'm like, okay, that's never happened before. And we just have to remember, like my contract's grown from 3 pages to 14 at this point. So those things are going to happen and you're getting new people and, it's good to have a bunch of policies in place and, having meetings so they all know what is expected. But it is tough when you have to delegate. As you start to grow, you're going to have a team and, you're delegating. There's times when I can't be at every event. And so I have to count on my team to help out and make sure they're doing what they need to do. So you do learn from all of that. But I think as planners, we are all perfectionists. So it is
it's hard for us to let go.
The struggle's real. So what are you most looking forward to this year?
Oh gosh. We have some wonderful clients. I love what we do so much because every client, every wedding is so different. I would be bored out of my mind if we just did the same weddings year after year.
Yeah.
So we're doing a lot of really great weddings this year, and I am really excited. We're investing a lot in our personal training internally right now and growing our team. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to this year.
That's really great. What is your favorite tool that you use in your business?
Oh gosh, so many. I love Boomerang for Gmail. When you are the planner, you are the middle person between obtaining information and then getting that to the clients. And sadly, in this industry, there are a lot of vendor partners that we work with that are not very responsive. There are amazing ones too, but I would say just on average, it takes 2 to 3 emails and a phone call to get everything that you're actually trying to extract.
Right.
So Boomerang.
So what does Boomerang do? What is Boomerang exactly?
When you send an email, when you send an email, you can schedule it to come back to your inbox at 2 days later, 4 hours later, 2 weeks later. So if I send something out and I'm requesting, I want a photography proposal, I'm going to boomerang that to come back to me in 2 days. And then if I haven't received a response from that photographer I reached out to, I don't have to try to remember what's still hanging out there. It comes back.
It's so great, especially when you're, banging out hundreds of emails a day and and then, I love when it comes back because I'm like, okay, I'm bumping this up. You probably missed this in your emails, but I try to put a nice tone on it. But I have no emails in my inbox, which people are always shocked. They think there's something wrong with my inbox.
That's how we operate too. And that inbox gets cleared out.
I flag a few things that I got to do. I push it onto the team and do what I need to do, but I don't know how anybody functions with thousands of emails. It makes me sick to talk about it at the moment. So you know too. But okay, so what's one piece of advice you'd give to wedding and event planners just starting out?
It's really important that you are over delivering, under promise and over deliver. It's so easy, especially when you're new, to get caught up in just wanting to please people and say yes to things that you don't actually know if you can do or not. You know, more likely than not, you probably need to go talk to the vendor or the venue and ask them what they need to be able to execute this thing, or is this possible? Like, be really careful that to your clients, you are not promising things or even alluding to being able to do something and then having to come back later and say, oh, we had this issue or we ran into this problem. Like, you want to get to the point where you're never coming to your client with issues. Like, it is so rare that I ever go to a client with like, oh, here's this issue or problem that's happening. So it's just better, like, under promise and then over deliver. Your reputation is everything. And you want, like, if you're just starting out, you want to get on venue lists. You want people to be referring you. Like, this industry is small. Word of mouth and referrals, that can make or break and build your business or not. And so I think it's really important that you are just focused on over delivering and not stretching yourself too thin. And remember, your client, they're your client, but also you have a bunch of people in the industry that you need to develop good relationships with too. And they're the people that you are working with day in and day out, on a repeat basis. And it's not that you're not serving your client. You are serving your client better by having good relationships in the industry. Because if you have good relationships in the industry, I can't even tell you how many people in the industry want to come do nicer things for our clients because they want to work with us. They want to put their best staff on our weddings, or they want to, give a little something extra in order to try to get the business with us because we make their lives easier. And I'm so honored by that. And like, it's something we really, really try to keep focusing on.
Yeah, it's definitely, the collaboration has to be there, and we can't create what we create without our fabulous vendors. So I get it. And one advice that I'd like to say is hire a coach, because that's what I did when I first started out. I didn't know how to price. I didn't know how to talk to the client. I didn't know what my form should look like. So many things. How do I get clients? All of that stuff. And again, come on over to the Facebook group, Event Planner Society. But I also wrote an ebook on the 7 biggest mistakes wedding and event planners make when planning events and tips to avoid them. So check that out. Go on my website, naveproductions.com, and you can check that out. It's like the top 7. There's things, but it's
hiring a coach that is so important. Like,
so important.
There are people that will be willing to have conversations. You'll learn things through talking with people, but don't just expect that everyone's going to want to give away their time. If there's someone that you really respect in the industry, go and ask them if you can pay them to coach you, or, maybe there's something else that you can give them in exchange for them helping you. But yeah,
does it, at all levels. I mean, I've had coaches all along the way, and you and I are in a coaching program together, which is a much higher level coaching program. But at every level, you're always going to need a coach. They're the best thing that all the money I've ever spent on it has been worth every penny. So it is going to take some some coins to learn, but it's worth it. So, and they can help you along the way. So, Emily, I could talk about this forever. You're so
I could too.
I know you and I could do this forever, but we both have businesses to go back to. Thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank you so much for having me, Annette. It was great.
All right, take care.